Assalamualaikum dan selamat kembali ke FTV. Hari ni kita berada dengan satu orang ni, kawan daripada Zeva. Zeva ni tolong kita dapatkan satu lagi orang untuk diinterview, iaitu Encik Yusrizal. Encik Yusrizal ni dia daripada Tenaga Nasional Berhad dan dia menjaga TNB Renewables. TNB Renewables ni kiranya mereka yang buat apa-apa yang renewable lah, tak kira lah. Banyak kita sembang sekarang solar, kita sembang hydro, kita sembang angin, dan ada juga yang cerita pasal ombak lah. Tapi kat Malaysia ni orang cerita pasal solar kot, no? Cik Zuzan, boleh Cik Zuzan cerita sikit perkenalkan diri Cik Zuzan?
Betul. Terima kasih Cik Samsul. Saya Zuzan. TNB Renewable basically bertanggungjawab within the TNB group ni untuk development and also investment in terms of renewable energy di Malaysia dan juga Southeast Asia. So di luar Malaysia kita ada juga tengok on wind potential, cuma dalam Malaysia very limited, and di Malaysia ni main fokus dia adalah solar lah. Selain daripada solar, I think kita ada aset biogas, TNB ada aset biomass dan juga mini hydro.
Okay. So solar kayaknya dia punya fokus utama sekarang lah in terms of renewable. Hydro dah macam ada lagi ke tempat yang boleh hydro?
Hydro dalam Semenanjung ni rasa dah almost fully developed. Mini hydro masih ada pockets here and there, cuma there are separate different challenges lah untuk mini hydro punya development. Main large hydro, I think for Semenanjung ni dah fully developed lah.
Macam kita tengok, saya tengok lah ni kat YouTube lah, tak tahu lah betul tak betul. Dia panggil macam low head punya hydro, turbulence tu, yang tu semua tu masih lagi ada potensial.
Low head hydro masih ada. I think a few companies pun dah identify potential di Sungai Kelantan, Sungai Pahang. Obviously ada, cuma dari segi development tu ada challenges dia itu sendirilah.
Kalau tak silap, saya difahamkan bahawa hydro macam large scale macam tak terus masuk bawah renewable. Or some classification dia tak masuk bawah renewable lah.
Some classification tak masuk, tapi kerajaan Malaysia dah recognize hydro, large hydro sebagai renewable. There are also countries out there, kalau tak silap saya India recognize, a few other countries lah. So previously large hydro tidak dikenal pasti sebagai pure renewable, tetapi I think the government has changed that stand based on the benchmark yang kita dah buat, saya rasa.
Solar ni bukanlah benda baru, kan? Jadi apakah sejarah TNB solar kan macam dengan solar?
Okay. TNB sebenarnya bermula very early lah. Dari segi research tu saya rasa daripada tahun 90-an lagi TNB dah buat research. And I think in terms of one of the earliest installation yang kita ada yang masih wujud sehingga kini adalah the first ever building integrated photovoltaic yang kita pasang di Bumbong College of Engineering Unit 10. Kalau you recall Unit 10 punya age, I think Unit 10 punya campus tu dari tahun 98, 99, and that installation is still in place dan masih beroperasi
still good
sehingga sekarang, betul.
Sudah 24 tahun
lebih kurang, betul.
So kita tahulah sebenarnya potensi solar, kita dapat TNB faham lah.
Betul.
So sekarang ni apa yang TNB dah, selain daripada kat Unit 10 tu, kat mana lagi yang TNB dah pasang solar untuk komersial?
In terms of the progression ni, selain daripada masa pasang dekat Unit 10 tu, is more of a research project lah. Kita ada installation dekat TNB Research juga yang mengkaji dari segi tilt angle, dari segi beberapa jenis modul dan sebagainya. Itu satu. Awal tahun 2000 lah. Sebenarnya saya macam sedikit bernasib baik sebab saya masuk kerja dalam tahun 2000 dan terus diletakkan to a subsidiary looking at renewable energy. Masa tu renewable energy ni semua orang cakap, people call it alternative energy, okay, if you can recall. So in I think 2001 2002 there was a project in Langkawi, if you recall, Gunung Mat Cincang, the cable car tu, and masa tu I think the first sort of commercial small scale lah. Solar masa tu masih mahal, cuma station, kalau kepada siapa yang pernah pergi ke Gunung Mat Cincang ni, daripada bawah tu kita naik ada middle station, ada top station. So the small power supply dekat middle and top station tu is supplied through what we call a solar hybrid punya arrangement lah. Di situlah mulanya solar hybrid, whereby we couple solar dengan bateri dan dengan diesel genset. And the diesel genset, I think based on the design and early operation ni rarely run lah, because we have enough solar to supply to the small power points untuk orang guna dekat situ, lampu-lampu dan sebagainya. And that was the early part, and then we shift into providing solar hybrid system to kampung-kampung orang asli di Pahang, di pulau-pulau Kepulauan Mersing, Pulau Sibu, Pulau Pemanggil, Pulau Tinggi dan sebagainya. And then it goes widespread lah to Gua Musang, to Sabah, and then Sarawak is done by other people but the same concept. Jadi TNB telah mencetuskan this solar industry and involved in this solar industry since then lah. Daripada 90s in the research punya scope, and then commercial implementation kepada off-grid installations, and then as we go into FIT in 2011, FIT dah macam FIT adalah feed-in tariff scheme yang diperkenalkan oleh kerajaan untuk merancangkan lagi this ni lah. Sebenarnya FIT feed-in tariff ni kita tengok daripada a few European country, mainly Germany yang start macam ni. And kalau kita sedar dalam bil kita setiap bulan kita ada bayar contribution, I think 1.6%, 1.6% dalam bil kita kepada kumpulan wang tenaga diperbarui. So this collection of money ni, ditabung ni lah kita gunakan untuk membayar the early sort of entrance to the ni. Solar masa tu sangat-sangat mahal, and saya rasa cost dia masa tu adalah terlalu tinggi, tapi ada a few people yang can afford to do this, and government come up with this subsidy scheme lah. Cuma bila cost solar tu makin lama makin menurun, solar dikeluarkan daripada program tu. Tahun 2016 government pihak kerajaan Malaysia memulakan large scale solar PV, LSS PV, pembidaan LSS PV, large scale solar PV punya bidding program. Daripada bidding program ni 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019 kita tengok dah ada 4 round. Cuma bukan 19, 20 lah yang terakhir. So dah ada round 1, round 2, saya rasa kebanyakan pemenang dah masuk menyumbangkan kepada grid. I think in terms of the already installed kapasiti yang telah dipasang melalui feed-in tariff dan program-program kerajaan sebelum ni, termasuk LSS 1 dan 2, dah menghampiri saya rasa 1,500 megawatt dekat situ. LSS 3 sepatutnya hujung tahun lepas yang connect kepada grid, tapi disebabkan COVID, sekatan perjalanan dan sebagainya, saya rasa kebanyakannya akan masuk tahun ini dan ke atas. LSS 4 masih lagi dalam proses pembangunan, dan saya rasa ini juga akan kemudiannya masuk lah.
So out of that, how much is TNB punya yang large scale solar?
Okay, dia ada sedikit kerajaan Malaysia nak menggalakkan penyertaan kepada lebih ramai developer lah. Jadi peraturan yang ditetapkan setiap satu pusingan tu, satu company hanya boleh menang satu. Jadi round 1 kita masuk, kita ada satu, iaitu di Kampung Labuhan Dagang, Banting. Pusingan kedua kita masuk di Bukit Selambau, kita ada yang kedua. Pusingan ketiga kita masuk tetapi kita tak berjaya, dan pusingan keempat kita dapat lagi satu di Bukit Selambau. Jadi kita ada 3 lah, kapasiti menghampiri 200 megawatt peak dekat situ, 3 plant.
So sebagai the main power supplier to the country, mungkin ke kita bergantung sepenuhnya dengan solar sebab kita duduk dekat khatulistiwa banyak matahari?
Okey. Saya rasa mungkin saya nak kena start dengan jelaskan sedikit lah. Bila dalam mana-mana sistem pembekalan tenaga, dia ada 3 komponen yang dia perlu consider lah, perlu dititik beratkan. So nombor 1 adalah dari segi ekonomi ataupun dari segi commercial cost. Nombor 2 adalah dari segi daya harap bekalan tersebut, reliability of supply. Dan nombor 3 adalah dari segi environment, dari segi alam sekitar lah, sama adakah kita menjana elektrik dan merosakkan bumi dan sebagainya. So 3 perkara ni memang perlu diseimbangkan. Jadi untuk bergantung harap 100% dengan solar, saya rasa dia akan tidak memenuhi keperluan reliability of energy, reliability of supply, daya harap supply. Sebab kalau kita bergantung pada satu punca dan sesuatu berlaku, sekecil mana pun kebarangkalian, jika berlaku dan that's it, kita tak ada option. Jadi saya rasa kita kena ada sedikit kepelbagaian. Namun begitu, kita boleh tengok dalam 2-3 tahun ni fokus utama diberikan kepada environment. So solar ni memberi contribution yang sangat besar lah towards having an environmentally responsible source of supply. Kita boleh tengok solar, cuma bukan isu lah, sedikit orang kata kekurangan kita ni dari segi potensi tenaga angin dekat Malaysia ni with the current available technology masih belum ada. Right. Tapi saya rasa banyak universiti tempatan, kita pun dalam engagement dengan beberapa ni and a few others outside pun kita tengah explore a slightly different technology for wind. So kalau ada lebih banyak, saya rasa punca tenaga diperbaharui lebih baguslah. Dan tenaga diperbaharui macam kita kata tadi, kita boleh bergantung pada hydro, kita boleh bergantung kepada biogas, biomass dan sebagainya.
So macam angin tu terhad sebab kita memang tak ada angin lah. Tapi apa kata macam setengah tempat tu ada angin, macam kita naik bukit kan. Betul. Genting tu angin kuat kan. Tak boleh ke macam TNB buat? Kat sana ada hydro juga. Buat kat situ wind untuk local. Is that something yang
sebenarnya kita sekarang ni in terms of access of information tu quite wide. I think mana-mana yang berminat boleh pergi Global Wind Atlas. You boleh Google pun, boleh check, dia ada wind map pun untuk Malaysia. Dan sebenarnya kita dah ada satu kawasan di Pulau Perhentian yang kita dah pasang wind turbine, but unfortunately it was not successful. Mungkin juga saya rasa, tapi dengan teknologi baru
tak ada angin ke situ?
Bukan tak ada. Cuma Pulau Perhentian ni is one of the best location di Semenanjung lah. Di Malaysia kita ada lokasi lain di Sabah, tetapi apa yang berlaku adalah on average Pulau Perhentian punya angin secara purata 4 meter per second. So when you are talking about 4 meter per second, ada masa dia akan lebih 4, ada masa dia kurang pada 4, betul? Untuk wind turbine tu berpusing, dia memerlukan dalam 4. So dari segi nak mula pun dah agak tak susah lah dia nak mulakan. Tetapi wind dia sangat laju musim tengkujuh. Cuma masalah dia dia melebihi hard limit safety wind tu. Dia 4 ke 13 meter per second normally. Dan musim tengkujuh di Terengganu dia lebih pada 13. Jadi bila safety untuk wind tu dia lebih 13, dia break.
So masa musim tengkujuh tak boleh pakai?
Tak boleh. Tapi musim tengkujuh pula dekat pulau tu sini orang pula tak ada. Jadi itulah. Tapi cuma saya rasa I believe eventually as macam teknologi lain
yang tahan angin laju pun
akan ada.
Macam dia orang pasang yang baru besar ni dekat Dogger Bank kan. Itu angin kuat ke situ.
Betul. Tapi on average saya rasa dia dalam 12-13 macam tu. So ideal for wind. And that's why you see sebenarnya wind punya konsep ni, kita dekat dia adalah perbezaan suhu temperature kan. You dekat khatulistiwa, kita punya suhu serata, sama je, stable. So that's why less movement. Kalau Southeast Asia ni, you go a bit north, you go to maybe Vietnam, then you start to have wind already. You go a bit more north, then better lah.
So you kata kena ada pelbagai lah sumber. But disebabkan, tak tahu lah ini, tengok di di internet lah, tak tahu lah Profesor Google cakap betul tak betul. Katanya MIT punya study, dia kata satu hari we receive about 10,000 times more energy than we can use from solar. So how many percent realistically kita boleh bergantung kepada solar? 60%, 70%, 80%?
There are already countries, contohnya macam Germany, yang in terms of install capacity dah exceed 50-60% dalam lingkungan tu. Cuma we are not only talking about install capacity but rather the energy that is able to be produced lah. And solar ni let's say you pasang install capacity 100 megawatt for example, and we take average, daily average kan, that 100 megawatt ni kalau solar, then you be looking at potentially kalau Malaysia ni around 4 hours you be able to get 400 megawatt hours in one day maximum. So macam mana dengan masa malam dan sebagainya, we can talk about battery obviously. And obviously I think as we go it will improve, I believe. Dan the amount of energy generated by the sun obviously is more. Cuma the conversion yang solar panel kita boleh buat ni, I think right now with the available technology we are looking at around 20% at best conversion.
Itu yang kita pakai kat on the ground ke 20% tu yang high end pakai kat satellite macam tu?
On average I think it's slightly less. The normal commercial yang kita dah guna less. Maybe dah a bit more. Tetapi yang dalam lab yang tengah duk buat ni ada dah saya rasa 20 or even approaching 30. So eventually it will come lah. For now yang commercially available, I think even the one that we have already installed in our solar farms, I think we are looking at probably close to 20 lah, 18, 19.
So how many percent of solar can we rely on? How many percent of our energy can we rely on solar? Realistically.
I think in terms of getting the amount of energy, dia sebab macam ni. Okay, I'm not sure whether if you've come across this dark curve phenomenon yang jadi dekat California. Dark curve belum okay, but I think viewers, you can go and search for dark curve. And what happened was California, obviously you know the people are very, orang kata, environmentally conscious. They
but also very energy hungry. They consume a lot of energy, and I think they are the 7th biggest economy in the world, exceeding. Oh, they were talking about when they reach a certain amount of renewable, suddenly macam tak cukup energy, is it?
Okay. So I want to explain touch a bit on this dark curve phenomenon. What happened was, a lot of people install solar on their roof, and obviously ideally for California dia ada desert, so tanah yang low value, yang kalau you tak buat apa-apa, you don't do anything pun kat tanah tu, so you install solar. There's a lot of, we've been to a few farms lah dekat California kan, so you install large scale solar. This we are talking about 2016, 2017 dulu tau, yang kat Malaysia ni tak ada lagi large scale. So what happened was, okay, during the day macam sekarang tengah hari, you have a lot of power from solar, and as the sun goes down towards the end of the day, bila you ada banyak tu, they don't need to start their gas plant at all. And obviously I don't think California ada coal plant anymore lah. Kalau ada coal plant, there's also another complication to it, but gas plant they can shut down. So tengah hari semua ni dia guna solar je. Towards the end of the day, as the sun goes down, they need to start a lot of gas plants at one go, because sun dia obviously dia boleh study lah kan, berapa jam lagi it will go to zero, then we need, so they need to start and catch that ni lah. So what happened was, bila you nak start banyak satu masa, ada technical issue apa semua lah, so that is actually the dark curve phenomena lah. Eventually when that situation happened, it made other people around realize that we need to address this issue. So that's why having a single ni pun tak bagus juga, sebab reliability of supply issue lah. Then we need to phase up eventually. I think some of these locations in California dia dah start guna battery pun. So you go into battery, mungkin you tak payah tunggu sampai pukul 6, pukul 4 tu you dah masuk dalam battery, then you start slowly to add on your gas plants lah. So these are some of the things yang when you operate the grid you will appreciate lah. Orang-orang yang jaga this grid control center ni, dia masa tu dia berdebar lah, sebab dia kena pastikan grid ni is interconnected. So kalau katalah there is a large tripping on one side, the electron tu akan rush to backup. So if you don't start fast enough, other unit that will backup, then there's a lot of things that can happen lah.
Right.
Tetapi I think with advancement of technology, benda ni kita kata yes, we are afraid, but I do think to a certain extent ada teknologi yang dah membantu kita untuk address all this. And with data analytics, automation, apa semua ni, banyak benda dah ni. And I think we've gone through a few rounds of issues yang disebabkan oleh renewable dan sebagainya, and we are to say that we are fully prepared for the next event, saya rasa we can never say that, but there are options to address lah.
Obviously we will be better prepared because orang lain pun dah make the same mistake kan. And talking about battery ni, kita nampak macam dekat South Australia, Tesla punya grid battery tu very successful. 3 bulan je dia dah pay for itself apparently. And California started to install grid battery. Do we have grid battery, and how much grid battery do we need?
Okay, right now belum. There has been few studies, and I think TNB Research and ourselves, TNB Renewables, we are exploring this study, doing this study and installation of a grid battery virtual power plant to address all these issues. Cuma we have yet to come to conclusion lah in terms of the final conclusion. But eventually I think grid will be the game changer. Grid battery will be something that, you know, in the future it will change things. You just imagine macam ni lah. Right now the government came up with net energy metering program, whereby if you have solar installed on your roof or your business facility, if there is surplus, then you can transport that to the grid, and you will be paid the same rate that you are buying.
That's right.
Okay. So maknanya you nanti dalam bill you dah ada credit tau, and there are many customers right now who don't even have to pay a cent pun, dia dapat positif lagi, negatif lagi dalam bill dia kan. So malam dia macam dah supply, and then you use back the credit, so that's why the offset happens. So you just imagine over time, 5 years down the road maybe, or maybe even less, grid battery or household battery becomes very very cheap. So orang yang ada solar atas rumah boleh pasang, and obviously kita siang kebanyakan kita lah tak ada di rumah, ataupun mungkin maybe ada seorang dekat rumah dengan peti ais and very minimal consumption. So whenever solar generated, charge the battery, then you can use the battery back at night. So that's why I think looking at it in the future, battery will change quite a lot of things.
So ramai orang kata habislah TNB macam ni.
Okay,
orang tak beli elektrik.
It can, tapi I think when comes a problem, there comes an opportunity.
That's right.
And obviously that's why we have TNB Renewables, kita ada G-Spark. G-Spark ni is our rooftop solar company, and looking at batteries. So we, as much as possible, as a responsible utility, we try to make sure that we stay relevant in the game lah. And saya kata tadi, we have hydro plants that I think eventually we will continue to generate. And in terms of energy transition, saya masih rasa gas akan play quite a significant role towards maybe closer to 2050 lah, at least.
Personally, I think kalau semua orang pasang solar and battery atas rumah, it helps TNB juga, sebab then you don't have to spend so much money on the solar and the battery, because then it becomes like a distributed grid kan. Semua orang, every neighborhood would be able to restart balik kalau ada blackout, kalau kan retreat kan.
Cuma satu, the limitation of, if you have battery then it's okay. If you have a standalone solar, because of safety, standalone solar, in order for them to be able to generate, dia kena ada signal yang the grid is okay. So kalau katalah sekarang ni you ada rooftop solar, katalah trip for whatever reason lah, dekat kawasan rumah you tu, kemungkinan besar you tak boleh ada api, because of safety. Sebab katalah TNB punya technician nak datang baiki, dia tak nak feedback. Tetapi there are ways to handle that lah. You have battery, you can solve that issue as well.
Okay, so apa nama tu, what is the amount, katalah for example, since you tak nak cerita kat berapa persen kita rely on solar, theoretically lah, how much space do we need to cover kalau kita theoretically nak pakai solar 100% kat Malaysia ni?
Okay.
What is our current capacity kegunaan tenaga kita?
Okay, I think the maximum demand, latest maximum demand a few weeks back, I think we are looking at 19,000 plus. Let's say to 20,000 lah.
Okay. 20 gigawatts lah.
20 gigawatts. And I think you go if let's say you go by install capacity, we need some reserve. And normal reserve we are talking about 30%. It will bring you to approximately around to 26,000. Round out lah 30,000 katakan. So if let's say theoretically you want to have 100% solar,
100%
right?
solar.
Rough estimation that we have run, I think we are looking at around if you want to have a 24/7 solar system, you need about 7 times more of the capacity that you need to meet lah.
Right.
So maknanya 30,000 atau 20,000 kali 7, 140,000 ke 210,000 megawatt. Right? So you need to have that amount of solar, and rough orang kata rule of thumb yang saya guna, 1 hektar 1 megawatt.
Right.
So 140,000 hectares or up to 210,000 hectares.
Right.
So lebih kurang macam tu.
That's
all.
all.
Land requirement.
Okay.
Obviously, I think
how much does that cost?
Land dari segi cost of solar.
Kita cerita tanah lah, kita cerita solar tu saja.
Solar right now, I think with the challenges that the market is facing right now, very unstable with the forex apa semua. I can safely say I think it will be between 3.5 million per megawatt, roughly. And I think as you go, obviously the cost was lower last time, and as we go, I think I expect that to go back down to lower rates. Tetapi masa lah, we are not sure right now macam mana. Battery pun I think it will be around the same number. So having solar and battery together at this moment, I think commercially doesn't make the case yet. But as we know, all kinds of technology, because right now people are focusing on lithium ion mainly, sebab kereta. But I think in terms of utility scale or power sector punya scale, I think we are looking at other technology, flow battery for example, redox, ada few technologies that is being analysed right now. Maybe they are not really early stage punya research. I think they are quite advanced, cuma belum commercially available lagi.
How long, berapa lama you rasa sebelum grid battery ini dah jadi like commonplace lah? So kita tengok a few countries dah start mula kan.
I think in terms of adoption, people will very likely still utilize lithium ion dulu. So that timeline for me personally, I think I look at less than 5 years. 5 years or less maybe. Tapi flow maybe take a bit more, tapi saya tak rasa maybe more than 10 years maybe. Because I do think in terms of the movement ni, dia quite fast. We do get always updates and people wanting to do.
One interesting, bila kita cakap battery, kita selalu ingat battery, chemical battery lah kan. But ada kita tengok some ideas, dia cakap basically gravity battery lah. Sama ada dia nak angkat concrete block naik tower ke, dia pump air naik balik ke atas ke, macam pangan kan. Is that something yang TNB dah tengok dan ada ke apa-apa potensi?
I think in terms of the monitoring and research, we are doing it. Dari segi potensi pun, obviously I think it's there. You talk about block inertia, we also look at even compressed air option. So these are some of the up and coming technology lah. Dalam I think we have a specific group yang we work very closely with TNB Research to identify and to explore on this up and coming technology. So saya rasa eventually not only chemical battery, lithium ion or flow or liquid battery, but also I think pump storage is obviously one of the oldest storage technology that we are talking about. water, gravity, blocks, compressed air, banyak lah. I think we are looking at that as well.
Okay. So you're saying 10 years before we start seeing widespread adoption of grid batteries?
That's what I think. Sebab dulu bila kita start tengok solar kan, if you recall back in 2010 lah, when we open up feed-in tariff kan, kita rasa macam it will take time, maybe 2020, tengok 2016 macam tu dia dah becomes commercially viable already, so about half the time. So I think in terms of battery pun it will be something, you know, not going to take long lah. Kita rasa dia longer, but even 10 years pun I think I stand to be corrected, and I hope I'm wrong.
Well, the amount of money being poured into battery right now is obscene kan?
Yes, banyak.
So
you see people, the investors putting in money, and macam all this you know, high value person, high worth individual kan.
So macam satu idea yang interesting, right now you just tembak power bila you siang hari kan, you pasang solar kat rumah, siang tembaklah power masuk. So kalau kata you ada battery, macam what Tesla is doing dekat Texas katanya, siapa-siapa yang pakai ada Tesla Powerwall lah, Tesla Powerwall, I don't know whether they're doing this experiment dengan Texas ni grid ke, satu dia ada collapse sekejap kan masa winter tu. So they were thinking they becoming virtual power plant. So all these thousands and thousands of people jadi virtual power plant, boleh bid for,
boleh jual balik.
So is that something yang possible kat sini ke? Is that
I think that's one of the things yang the government through SEDA, through kementerian tengah tengok. I think they do have this pilot study for what they call is as a peer-to-peer punya arrangement. Meaning let's say you have solar kan, on top of your roof, and then you plan to go on holiday lah, kata seminggu kan.
That's right.
And then you call me, I have additional power next week, you want to buy? I think they are looking at this option right now, peer-to-peer punya arrangement. I'm not sure of the progress, but there was a pilot study being conducted.
How difficult is it to convert the system to make like TNB punya grid to not just a grid but like an energy exchange? So, you know,
I think right now you have already seen it happening. It's just that to the individual level, rumah ke rumah tu mungkin kita tak nampak lagi lah. But with all this, you know, blockchain technology, all this digital finance punya technology, I think it's up and coming. It's just that
does that help with the energy industry or not? Or is that more like something yang
I think it will go both ways. Cuma apa yang kita nak kena recognize, there are already money being put to establish the infra in the first place. What happened in some jurisdictions is they impose some kind of very marginal fee lah, to make sure whatever that has already been committed will be able to recover. So pada saya, so long that this being done in a wide open eyes way and understand the implications kan, I think we can address those. If you look at this, for example lah, people always talk about wanting to have that independence to choose kan. So pada saya, eventually how many of us yang betul-betul tengok kita punya bill on a monthly basis, and what is the arrangement yang you ada sekarang yang you tak dapat. I think if you want to have additional source of supply from solar, there are already ready policy available on top of the roof to allow you to do that. And eventually maybe peer-to-peer will come in, and that is already a start of that being a marketplace lah. Cuma I think we have to recognize the fact that some of us maybe heard about Vietnam being very very bullish on renewable energy, and in 2018 and 2019 alone, from almost zero, you're talking about having I think 9 plus 6, 15 megawatts of solar in those 2 years alone. Cuma what happened was they realised dia committed too much and they don't do a proper sort of analysis macam what kita buat kat sini, and then what happened was the grid is not ready to accept that much. So you for example kan, you the peak of the day, you ada matahari yang sangat terang, hari tak hujan, clear skies kan, you get a lot of energy, but your line tu tak boleh nak bawa. So macam
cukup besar lah.
macam plus highway kita raya, we go home.
Electron jam.
We go home because of the highway is not designed to take that much of a flow, then you jam lah kan. So bila you jam, kereta tak apalah, kereta can just stop there. Electrons dia tak pergi mana-mana, dia hilang. So I think we need to recognize this and the ability to make sure that we do this properly sajalah. Obviously it's good to have solar, but if we do it in a way that we don't consider the stability of the system, the requirement, then we will face the same thing.
So moving forward, one of the big things yang maybe I'm sure you guys tahu lah kan, electric cars are coming out. On average sekarang ni kita punya battery size maybe around 70 kilowatt, right? But of course sekarang kita premium products lah.
Right.
Later on average probably 50 kilowatt satu kereta. That's a lot of energy. That's like 2 days worth of energy for the average Malaysian household.
Right.
How can you take advantage of that? Yeah.
I think generally more and more equipments are becoming more and more efficient. And then with the environmental punya awareness, people are starting to be more aware lah. Maknanya tak guna lampu kita tutup, tak guna aircon, or we set the aircon to be at the most efficient possible level, right? We have also anticipated in terms of the demand growth. Kita nampak growth kita ni as opposed when we were back in early 2000, early 90s, it's not as high as that anymore. So this growth in terms of business punya approach for TNB, I think it will be compensated by the introduction or the switch to electricity by more and more transportation punya sector. We think it's good, and obviously I think design of electricity system ni dia bukan esok nak hari ni boleh buat.
Betul.
We have to look at long term.
So how much basically, let's say I don't know how many thousands of barrels of oils we're using in a day. All that energy now needs to come from you guys instead of Petronas or Shell, whatever.
Okay.
Is that a big thing?
I think we should be able to compensate, and I think it's not going to be a step jump. It will be a gradual increase which we can forecast. And for everyone's information lah, I think in terms of the power system planning, kita ada as far as 20-30 years punya planning that we update every year, down to annual planning, which we go out and tell the fuel supplier we need to buy this much, down to operational level weekly, which we decide on, this week we need this amount of gas, this amount of coal, making sure we have enough stock, down to the daily basis and down to the half hourly basis, where we decide, pukul 1 ni kita nak start plan mana, nak shut down plan mana. So down to that detail. In terms of the plan, I think it's a best industry practice that we are adopting. And obviously for demand increase, demand projection ni kita memang forecast lah. So I think it can be whether we can or we cannot meet that demand. It's more of as a responsible, macam saya kata tadi, utility business entity kan, we obviously want to be able to meet that demand for us to stay very much relevant in the business lah.
This is the interesting reason why I ask you this question, sebab tiap-tiap seminggu tu mesti ada lah at least 4-5 orang yang akan kata, nanti untuk grid TNB ni bila pakai kereta elektrik semua. But strangely, when you look at literature, you tengok US ni planning, nobody seems to be this is kita dah nampak, kita boleh plan kan. Betul.
Obviously. And I think if you run a grid, you would not want a grid to be sekejap naik, sekejap turun. So you want to be able to understand the profile for you to plan lah, which I think over time we have seen that. we are able to anticipate lah. Maybe kita pun tak boleh juga nak anticipate ke semua benda, but I think terkawal lah. To say that suddenly the grid will go down because of the high demand in EV, I don't think it will happen that way lah. Sebab progression of people going into EV pun akan ambil masa kan. Dia dah beli hari ni kereta internal combustion engine, takkan esok dia nak beli ni. They will probably use 2-3 years and then we can phase out.
Let's say right now kita nampak the progression is very slow, and I believe it's very slow sebab the government mungkin tak nampak lagi the need to quicken it. So because dia belum letak lagi deadline untuk last day of selling ICE. Even Europe pun duk gaduh lagi 2035 tu kan. So let's say they decide then to put a deadline, kan, that could speed things up a bit.
Right.
Is that still something yang TNB boleh cope with?
I think so. I think we do. I mean, deadline tu pula dia pun akan ada phasing kan. So that will help us a lot lah. And I think to give credit also to Suruhanjaya Tenaga, TNB, single buyer, grid system operator, all these plans ni go through Suruhanjaya Tenaga, and the validation or the orang kata making sure Suruhanjaya Tenaga ni dia akan make sure the plan is a reasonably robust plan. Dia akan question, dia akan tanya, and the big picture of the plan tu akan dibincangkan di peringkat jawatankuasa dengan kementerian. So I think dari segi governance, dari segi the proper doing of planning ni, it's already there in place. And obviously we also learn a lot from European countries, US and whatnot lah.
Okay, so thank you so much. So as you guys semua tahu, kita punya kawan ZEVA ni, Zero Emission Vehicle Association, dan memang we are always pushing kereta elektrik dan ramai kawan-kawan asyik tanya, so hari ni dah terjawab. Tak blackout kalau semua orang pakai kereta elektrik. Dia orang dah nampak benda tu nak datang, dah ada planning. Dan kalau siang kata kereta elektrik ni kotor sebab banyak arang batu pun dah nak berkurangan 2029 lah.
The first batch
akan tutup dan akan berkurangan lah. Basically arang batu ni akan menjadi makin berkurangan. Dan solar pun, walaupun mungkin TNB masih lagi belum banyak, benda tu inevitable lah kot solar inevitable sebab kos semakin menurun dan kos bateri pun semakin menurun. It looks like in the future most of our energy will come from solar dengan augmented dengan benda-benda lain lah kan. Kita kat Malaysia ni ada satu tenaga yang kita tak boleh sentuh, iaitu nuclear. So kita ada zone of peace, freedom and neutrality. Ni kalau kat sekolah hampa belajar belum ingat Zokpan, ingat tak? Kalau ingat tu ada. So yang itu sebab kita sekarang tak ada nuclear power plant, antara sebab-sebabnya. Tapi itu pun satu teknologi yang cukup menarik, dan tak tahulah, kita kena try lah, tengok macam mana ke, sama ada government sanggup ke, berani ke nak buka balik that kind of worms. Tapi it's something yang memang nampaknya it's a very exciting future for energy. So kalau nak beli kereta elektrik tu, beli booking cepat lah. Mahal gila ni, tapi tak apalah, sikit lagi nanti dia murah. So anyway, kalau apa dah tengok sampai habis ni, saya ucapkan terima kasih juga Encik Isrizal kerana panjang lebar cerita kita. Dan boleh tekan butang subscribe dan juga tekan butang loceng supaya tak ketinggalan bila kita buat video terbaru. Pemandu Malaysia yang berhemah, kita jumpa lagi insya-Allah.
Thank you.